Hello, welcome to the Hat on Head News Cabin. Going to talk to you guys about the coronavirus. What else would I talk to you about? Definitely taking over everyone's mind, and want to give you my thoughts. So I'm going to probably kind of pick up where I left off in terms of ranting about the strategy. On the one hand, I think it's amazing that we were all able to mobilize and really stop what we're doing and shut down the entire economy because we care about people dying. That's pretty amazing. But to me, this was not a long-term strategy. It was not something that we're going to be able to hold for a long amount of time. And we don't have a vaccine. So I think that what we should be working towards is immunity for those who are healthier and at much less risk factor of serious illness and death. I'm going to show you guys an article here that was published April 4th that shows much of the same thing, which is that people over the age of 65 are, I think it's 30-fold at higher risk of death, right? So that's the information that I want to put out there for people to understand, is that yes, social distancing is great, but the most important thing is to pay attention to the most vulnerable population. And so that's really my main thoughts have been recently, is that we have this strategy that's put out there that works for people who are wealthy, that works for basically people who are happy to stay home, but there's so many people within our economy that make it run that still have to work, and there's so many people whose livelihoods that have been destroyed. This unemployment rate is unreal. The dent in the economy is serious. And these are people's hopes and dreams. This is something that we should not scoff at, and I see that a lot. When I talk about how bad it is what we're doing to people's livelihoods, people are basically like, oh well, you just don't care about people. No, I do. I think we should focus our efforts where they can be effective. And I'm going to show you this concept about social sorting, which a friend of mine she gave a TED talk when I put on these TED Talks in Boston when I was graduating Suffolk University, put on these TED Talks. She was one of the speakers. She's the CEO and founder of Learnivore, which is a platform that connects private tutors and students. She's an incredibly insightful lady, and she wrote this great article that did not get a lot of reads, and it's about social sorting. And this is a practical strategy that people can implement as part of their lives that makes a difference. And these types of strategies, right? And I think this is also the reason why the mask was not kind of pushed early on. It took literally a month for Western countries to recommend wearing a mask. And the reason is because it's not an absolute strategy. The absolute strategy is to stay home and do nothing. And that is the only strategy that our leadership can give us, because everything else, there's a risk involved, and our leadership is not able to deal with risk, which is what leadership should be good at dealing with risk. And that's what I see, is that the information was out there. It was clear that this is a virus that was attacking older people, but we just didn't know how to deal with that. All right, so I'm going to go right here with the Emily Burns article about social sorting. Social distancing and social sorting. I propose the idea that maybe we need social sorting as well as social distancing. This article, she wrote this on March 18th. Perhaps a couple of families with a couple of under 30-year-olds could have the kids live together in one house and the parents live together in the other house. It might be ideal to have under 30s stay socially distanced, but what if they just won't, as they clearly are not, based on the article above? Or what if there are already carriers among the millions of students bringing the disease with them back to their parents? As I posted in my article yesterday, the best data we have, which is from South Korea, shows age 20 to 29 to be the biggest reservoir of COVID cases, and they are the most mild. What's more, even these data may underestimate the numbers in this group, as the ones tested would have at least been exhibiting some symptoms. So this is a comparison of percentage of COVID-19 infections versus death by age in South Korea. And we see here, what we see everywhere, is that it's obviously older people who are at higher risk of dying. Based on this distribution, there seems to be no question that keeping people under 30 separated from under 60 is one more thing we can do to help mitigate the deadliness of this outbreak. All right, now I'm going to go to the Worldometer's numbers here for April 13th, just to kind of, see the things that shows what's going on, and the fact that we have been able to flatten the curve. The question is for how long, since we don't have a vaccine. We're obviously going to have to develop some sort of immunity as a society. So we have 1,000,009 cases, 120,000 deaths. This here, so April 12th, yesterday, the deaths are down, so it's definitely a great sign. And here, even better to look at is the change in percentage increase. All right, and here now I'm going to take a look at this article here, which I brought out, which is very relevant and just supports my thoughts, and that is that we need to separate each other out by risk factor for this disease. Objective: to evaluate the relative risk of COVID-19 deaths in people under the age 65 versus older individuals in the general population under 65, to provide estimates of absolute risk of COVID-19 deaths at the population, and to understand what proportion of COVID-19 deaths occur in non-elderly people without underlying diseases in epicenters of the pandemic. Countries and U.S. states or major cities with at least 250 COVID-19 deaths as of 4/4/2020, which is about 10 days ago, and with information available on death counts according to age strata, allowing to calculate the number of deaths in people with age under 65. Data was available for Belgium, Germany, Italy, Netherlands, Portugal, Spain, Sweden, and Switzerland, as well as Louisiana, Michigan, Washington, and states in New York City as of April 2020. So here are the results. We're just going to go down to the, we'll read all of the results. Individuals with ages under 65 account for 5 to 9% of all COVID-19 deaths in the 8 European epicenters, and approach 30% in 3 U.S. hotbed locations. People under age 35 years old had 34 to 73-fold lower risk than those over 65 years old in European countries. Wow. The absolute risk of COVID-19 deaths ranged from 1.7 per million for people under 65 years old in Germany to 79 per million in New York City. The absolute risk of COVID-19 deaths for people above the age of 80 years old ranged from approximately 1 in 6,000 in Germany to 1 in 420 in Spain. So this right here is a huge difference, and we saw that as well. Germany is just able to treat this so much better. And so there's one question is, what I brought up in a previous video, are they reporting all of their COVID-19 deaths as COVID-19 deaths? And then there's some information that came from my mom in different places that is saying that it's mostly about the treatment, that the Germans are, what they're doing is that they are intaking the patients really soon, whereas in France, they are making them stay at home until they get worse, which is apparently the wrong way to handle this disease. People under the age of 65 years old have very small risks of COVID-19 deaths, even in the hotbeds of the pandemic, and deaths for people under 65 years without underlying predisposing conditions are remarkably uncommon. Strategies focusing specifically on protecting high-risk elderly individuals should be considered in managing the pandemic. Well, it's not surprising that I would show you data that supports my hypothesis, but right there they have it as a conclusion, right? And these are people who are, the thing that I see is that the media is hell-bent on saying that this is something that affects everyone, because that is more of a story. The people in leadership positions are not able to give us strategies that would allow us to function as a society, because they want to not be responsible for any deaths, period. And here is my main statement about this. People die every day. Okay, I'm going to bring you now the Worldometer's numbers. And this is just my way of looking at the world, okay, is that we cannot kill ourselves to protect a small portion of the elderly, this is not the right strategy, and I am opposed to it. Um, all right, well, actually, let me do that, what I just said I was going to do. Here we go. So today, there's 134,000 people that died. Much more than, it's about the same amount as, actually, so there's 120,000 total dead of COVID-19, and 134,000 souls passed away. Everyone's important. Every one of those 134,000 people that died today is important, just like every one of the 120,000 people that died of COVID-19 is important. But what we need to do is come up with a strategy that is also going to work for the 7 billion, 8 billion people who are alive. And that's my main point here, guys, is that it seems like we are killing ourselves. And we're not, I do not think that our strategy has been more effective than if we came up with a strategy that focused on those that are most vulnerable. That's what we failed to do when we have a strategy that is for everyone, is if you concentrate 100% of the resources on 100% of the people, you have 1% of the resource per person. If you concentrate 100% of the resources on the 10% of the people that are the most valuable, you will have much, much better outcomes. And that's what leadership is all about, is making the tough calls. And I just think that in 2020, that stuff doesn't exist. So, that's what I got for you, is I just think that we need to concentrate our efforts on where they are necessary, on the people with the highest risk factor. So, all right, I think it's important to do everything we can, and everything that we can do does not involve not going outside. It does not involve not seeing a friend. There's all these things that we're doing that are just making our own lives hard, and we're not doing what we should be doing, which is simply concentrating all of our efforts on the most vulnerable people. And we know who these people are. So it's that simple. If you do not focus your efforts, then you are not going to accomplish the mission. All right, that's what I got for you. Thanks for joining me. Keep your hat on your head.